Alrighty, let's get this shared. What's up, Maddie? Sober. It's good, everybody. GJ doing its thing. First trade of the last like 2 weeks for me, but looks like it's going to be a banger. I'm hoping, banking on it. But yeah, see what happens here. See what happens. Okay, so I'm going to talk about this, obviously, and I'm going to be assigning some homework for it. And we can follow up with the homework on take profits and shit like that, getting later into the week, probably going into next week. Let's get into this. Start chatting about what's going on here. So GJ, you can see this sort of scoop on liquidity that happens. I'm just going to break it down from left to right, right? So we get this sweep, boom, automatic rally, or this nice push that happens. Now, I'm not trading in here just because I was a little uncertain as to like what the move was going to be, right? I didn't know exactly what was going to happen here, but ultimately we tap into demand. We got a really good reaction, and this right here was what started to entice me into the market and really start to try to formulate a trade idea on the buy side of things. So what I looked for, and I kind of mentioned it last night, was like we want to see order flow realign. And where that does that for me is basically right at this level right here. So we can see that we tap into obviously the supply region that breaks down, right? It pushes in, but you'll see that it fails to create, right? Fails to create a new low. So once that low fails to be essentially created, the next sort of move that I'm looking for is, okay, if this fails to create that new low, ideally we're going to want to see some sort of a break on that supply level, right? So once that supply got broken, we pushed down, we broke ourselves back up, and you can see that we just start to kind of taper down into this, and you'll notice that we don't actually break this high. So what does that mean, right? Well, technically the structural low and the structural high that we're operating in are between these legs, right? So obviously our premium and discount should be reflecting that. And then getting down into the 15, this is where the details really sort of showed themselves. So I had this entire demand zone mapped out. Obviously there's a take on liquidity that happens right in here. So you can actually refine this guy probably down to something like this. And you'll see that we have a little form of inducement right across the lows right here. I can map that out as well. So let's just go like this. Okay, so there's your sweep. Okay, we'll just keep this like this. And just moving over to the left from, or sorry, over to the right from there. So we actually took out this sweep. Okay. And as we tap in, we're not looking for or at least I'm not looking for trades right at the lows here. I'm looking for basically order flow to start doing its thing, right? Like we're assuming that all these built up mitigations across here, the equal highs all across here should all get taken out. You can see just how this is sort of framed up, and it just gives you a little bit more of an idea that we've taken out all the early buyers, boom, come back down. And this is where that higher time frame narrative really kind of shows through, right? Is just waiting for the move, right? Waiting for that next move in the market to get punched in, waiting for that bigger sweep of liquidity, and then being able to capitalize on this. Because once these lows get taken, right, and we start reacting, and then we get that order flow realignment on our 15 or our 30, whatever it is that we want to look at, man, it becomes so easy to start formulating these trade ideas and being like, okay, well, demand starts getting respected on our lower time frame now we can start to look at where we can get involved, where we have LTT and LTT, and that's exactly what I've done with this trade. So everybody with me, that we can see this essentially we break down through the low, order flow realigns. It's just a wick break, it's not a big deal, but it wasn't enough for me to get involved. I wanted to see a little bit more personally, and that's why I waited for the area that I sort of got involved at. I wanted to see at least a substructure break showing that there's intention in the market. So when you're looking at this, you can start to see that, okay, well, now if we've broken through this high right here, and again, more apparent on the 1 minute, the low and the high are now resting here, right? So if that's the case, we can start to look at the areas that would obviously potentially give us a trade idea. So right now, as it stands, the way that I sort of looked at this was, okay, we got the substructure break that happens across the red line here. We have levels of liquidity to take from the market. The first level of liquidity to take would obviously be this little flip zone. But you'll notice, obviously, like there's interaction zones all the way through, especially on the beginning of this reaccumulation phase that's happening in the market. So what I looked for is basically this entire region right here that pushes up and then breaks down through this little demand level. There's interaction here, pushes down, takes out all this liquidity, expands, leaves behind liquidity to essentially take, and then obviously leaves behind liquidity to target up across the high. So all I did was use a 1 minute, basically a limit. I had mine setting basically at this block right here, and then of course adding spreads on top of that. And that's basically the trade idea. We had liquidity to take, liquidity to target. As soon as we got after this, I moved over to break even, and away we go with our trade idea. So in terms of targeting, I mean, obviously, like we're looking to target quite a bit higher. I believe this entire trade idea runs about 60 or 70 R. There'll be substantial partials taken along the way. But yeah, that's basically, does everybody understand? Drop a 1 in the comments if this is crystal clear now that we've looked at it. And 2, if you have a question about it. Super, super great, easy peasy fucking trade idea. Yeah, there might be another one coming up in here. To be honest with you, I would be looking at liquidity building up in here potentially, and then possibly coming down and doing that exact same move. So just be mindful of it. Look for your confirmations the way that you'd like to do them. If you're a seconds trader, great. If you're not, look for maybe a bullish engulfing that happens in here in this region. Like that's the thing is with entry is there's so many different ways to be able to get involved. I could have got involved on the seconds on this as well, and there's a couple different ways, and I'm just going to show those really quickly as well. But like the main sort of ones that you could have got involved in would have been obviously on the here, let me show you a couple different ways. But ultimately the POI that we're looking at on the 1 minute is here, right? So you could just have your limit setting underneath here. Why? Because we're going to look for this to get swept and you would get tagged in on the sweep. Or on the flip side of things, you could also have a buy stop sitting above here with your stop loss sitting just below this low. You could also have your buy stop sitting above here, covering just this low if you wanted to be aggressive, and then knowing full well that we have a valid extreme. You could also be playing into the entire flip zone. Like there's so many different ways to get involved with that same trade idea. But for me personally, like I said, I'm looking for liquidity to be able to take into the overall demand range, and then from there executing based on a limit. I'm not as quick with the seconds as I've not been actively trading for, like I said, the last couple of weeks, just with everything going on in my personal life. So I just kept it nice and simple, a little bit wider stop loss than I would have liked to. But you know what? C'est la vie, as they say, and ultimately the trade idea has worked out in my favor. So over at break even now, ultimately this thing can come down deeper into this. Potentially it could also just come into these regions. I'm already involved. I'm not looking to scale in or anything like that just yet. The only time I'm really going to be looking for scale ins is if and when we sort of break through, obviously see something like this with a sweep, and then we get order flow realigning to be able to take these into new areas. So in what scenarios should we use seconds instead of 1 minute, and any particularly? So there's no real particular scenario. All it does is, what I find is seconds I usually like to use just like a more aggressive approach to get in the market. And what I mean by that is like I will oftentimes be able to get involved with like a market order, whereas with a market order on like a 1 minute, you're typically dealing with like larger candles, and you'll more often than not, like, have like a wider stop loss, not quite get the RR that you're after. So the seconds is just an added confluence for me to just be able to click the button and say, you know what, good enough, I'm going to get involved, or set my my sell or buy stop limits. And then furthermore, you can do the exact same thing with a 1 minute. Like I said, it's just a spread out a little bit larger stop loss. So there's no like one way to do it, one way to not do it. I mean, it's totally personal preference. Both work equally as good. They're both as effective. It's just whether or not you can sort of watch the seconds print out and be able to act accordingly based off of all the other time frames, right? So I hope that answers your question. I know there's no like true answer to that. It just depends on how you want to set up. Do you want to sit here and stare at the screen for 45 minutes while this thing builds out and watch for that seconds just to get maybe half the or a quarter of, sorry, 3/4 of the size of the stop loss? That's something that you would have to decide on your own, right? For me personally, like I said today, I had the call coming up. I had other stuff going on in the house that I was just taking care of. So just setting the limit order on a 1 minute block was the better scenario. So no real specific stuff. So that was the trade idea for today. And yeah, in terms of targets, like obviously I'm looking to target quite a bit higher. Let's just go like this, and I'm just going to drag this out, and let's go like this, visual order settings and visibility. So we'll put this on all of the hours, and let's go out to a 1 hour just so that we can see what's going on. So very, very simply put, we can see liquidity just building. The idea is that technically all these highs should in theory be weak. I could probably aim for something all the way up here if I really, really wanted to. Partial wise, what I'm going to be doing is obviously taking a partial at the next 15-minute sort of supply. That next 15-minute supply would probably be, and again, we have to use our liquidity concepts to be able to get involved with it. So I would say the only area that I would really be interested in getting scaled out would probably be something along the lines of this, right? There's the sweep of liquidity, has interaction. So my first TP would probably be something in here. And then furthermore, probably above this region right here that has a weak high. And then going forward, I would probably even just bring that up to somewhere up here to take out all this liquidity and then start aiming for supply zones just above it, where that next pullback is going to be, right? So again, we'll monitor this as it sort of develops a little bit further. Don't know for sure what's going to happen, if we're going to take another run at the lows or what we're looking to do here. But ultimately, my first partial will not be taken up until I see a level where I would trade from on the opposing side, which would just be above this liquidity where that sweep is. And I may even look for a hedge here to be able to obviously grab some more confluence or some more confidence rather in the actual trade idea, knowing that I'm playing both sides of the trade. So that's it for this one. So I'm going to be, how much you take out each partial. So interesting. I don't actually have like a set amount that I will typically take off. I will typically look at how things are sort of developing and decide based off of that, if that makes sense. Because if we're getting like really, really strong reactions to these levels, what I may do is just take a smaller amount or sorry, a larger amount and then look for a hedge. Or I can actually look at potentially just taking off like 25%, looking at a hedge, or just letting it run, given how fast we are or how discounted in price we actually are. So it really just depends on how we sort of start acting around these levels where I'm anticipating that next reaction. We look at EU during London. Yeah, we can. Okay, give me a second so somewhere in a sec. EU in London, so somewhere in here. What are we looking at? Long, shorts?
I just did a markup on shorts. If you go to the 4 hour, maybe it's better just to start there. Do you see we get this? Let me just bring up this acts with this, but because we get this big push and this order flow shift and it creates this, I went on to the 15 to look in there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, and like that's the thing is like we were kind of like we're getting like more and more discounted. I know I sort of mentioned it in the oh my god, the daily look ahead. Like the overall POI that we're looking at is obviously going to be in here, right? That's the one that takes liquidity. So we get the initial tap. That looks like it's being swept now. Just be cautious, man. That's all. Like, was there liquidity to take into this POI? Yeah. So like
liquidity to target. I targeted, well, I didn't take this. I just did it. I targeted to here because even though there is a bunch of liquidity here, I was like, if we are going to get a reaction, it's going to come from here.
It's going to come from down there. Yeah. I mean, not a bad trade idea. I mean, ultimately it works. Liquidity to take, liquidity to target. That's not bad intraday. And I think that's what I mentioned too, is like, as long as we have more of like the intraday targets, and like aligned with what we're looking for, I think I wouldn't say a safe play, but it's something that like you can almost bank on a reaction, especially with the development and price across these lows, right? And like taking this out, obviously the region is going to, it's going to come down, obviously coming down into something like this, probably take out all this liquidity. So aiming just below equals would have been reasonable.
Okay. Is it something you would look at or not?
I mean,
Because
probably
not that we
not
really
for
look
me.
at. Sorry.
Probably not for me, no. Just because like we're like there's just other stuff that's framing up that was a little bit better, like I said, like with the GJ play, and then obviously the Euro JPY play that I was looking at. I'm way more focused on like the higher RR move, and I'd rather stock those pairs. Like to me, the EU move is already done, right? Like we've already done the larger move. If it's something that you want to monitor to be able to get involved, like I would have probably waited for all of this to get swept, and now looking for something like this to potentially come down and take all of this out. But yeah, like I said, man, like it's just there was my attention was elsewhere, just based on the fact that there was more RR available sitting across these pairs, right?
It's just that I've never really looked for intraday anymore. I've always been, since we switched to looking at the 4 hour. So I'm just trying to gauge what I should be looking at, which is, yeah, this comes with experience, I think.
I think it comes with experience too, and like ultimately, like this isn't a bad move. Like I said, your narrative is right, but it's just one of those things where it's like there's just other things that, well, like obviously were a little bit more enticing, where they were sitting in price in the higher time frame legs. Like we're discounted, right? We're discounted in the leg. It's just one of the, like, I mean, look at how discounted in the leg we are for this, right? Like this is way more favorable for me, just given the fact that we have all of this and all of this, right? That's all. I mean, I was just like you. I mean, you're probably just trading EU for the longest time too, right? And it's very easy to look at EU because it's what everybody's looking at. But yeah, this is just a way better setup that deserved a little bit more attention, in my opinion.
Okay, thanks.
Cool. Okay, so let's look at watch list wise, if we need to sort of evaluate anything over the course of the next couple of days. So Euro USD, it looks like this is probably going to get taken out. You'll notice that, like, obviously, here, let me just get rid of all these drawings. You'll notice right now that essentially bullish order flow is in the market, right? I mean, it's sitting, sorry, up here, down here, down here. So this will probably all get ran. And I kind of mentioned, like, the, like if this is our swing break, which it is, I don't care if it's a wick or a body, doesn't matter. We've broken this low, right? And ultimately, where did we break that low from? Well, at its origin, where supply is sitting in the market, we're looking up here for potentially taking sells. You can still look for stuff in here, just intraday, like whatever, just being a little bit more aggressive with your targets. I mean, anything can happen. This could take this out, but it looks like it's building liquidity for that higher move, to be able to sweep all of this out and then possibly start coming down. That's at least how I'm seeing this now, and I will reflect on that a little bit further in the daily look ahead for tonight. But yeah, I took a short on EJ during Asia. Could you take a look if that's okay? EJ during Asia. Okay. To me, there's nothing valid in here, brother. Just given the fact that nothing has realigned for us. We haven't taken out a swing point. And yeah, I guess that would be a 15-minute swing point technically. So to me, this is a little bit rushed. You can see that we've come down into these regions right here. We should have ultimately waited for this and then liquidity to take into an extremity or whatever it might be. So yeah, to me, there's nothing super valid in here, brother, unfortunately. Cool. Checklist. It's gonna save you a lot. I know it's fucking awful sometimes to just like sit there and wait for trade ideas, but yeah, this didn't meet criteria, just given the fact that we couldn't even take out internal structure, right? So just be careful. Most of the components were there, and it was really close to doing it. I know it's just one of those things, right? Get all excited about potentially getting involved, and yeah, it just doesn't work out sometimes. So just wait for criteria, guys. Higher RR trades they pay you to wait, man. That's like the name of the fucking game. It's not about being involved in every trade. It's about being involved in the ones that make sense, that correlate with our plan. Like, look at this one. Liquidity to take, liquidity to target. This makes way more sense to me. Discounted in price doesn't even mean it's going to work out. It just means this deserves more attention. Why? Because look at the risk reward available on it. It's insanity. Might have to hold it for a couple days, but this deserves way more attention, at least in my opinion, and looking for those details. Okay, let's see what else we got. Euro, yeah, GU starting to come down. Yeah. So not super interested in anything on this. I'd like to see some form of a pullback that takes out liquidity. This will all get ran at some point. We've got the swing structure break. We're going to start to enter pullback phase. I'll be covering this a little bit further with the left-hand side to look at where the higher time frame demand zones are. I'll be doing that this evening for the daily look ahead for tomorrow. So stand by for that. And then obviously AU, starting to break down. I kind of mentioned this yesterday again, get that initial tap in. Ideally, we'd like to see that get swept before then continuing down, right? It's just the same thing every single time. Can you get involved with initial reaction trades? Sure. There's stuff there, but you got to be careful, right? Because liquidity is going to rest above here. And if you want to get yourself in that sort of habitual nature of being able to wait for the actual move to play out, we always need to wait for stuff to get swept out, right? Because now we're going to get reactions to low. This will probably print out, right? Sweep again, and then come back down, and then come and take out all this liquidity, right? We're building liquidity for this move, but yeah, just be mindful of it. Right? Be mindful of what's happening with price. What is the incentive for bigger money to get involved in the market? Every buyer, there's got to be a seller. Every seller, there's got to be a buyer, right? So if they want to load up on positions, they are going to create that false narrative of being able to trade from this region, grab stop losses, and then drop down. So totally up to you how you want to trade it. That's just my 2 cents. GJ, yeah, obviously looking for longs. Euro JPY, yeah, we're starting to obviously move forward a little bit more and more. I would say that, yeah, looking for shorts, nothing actually framed up. So we just get rid of this stuff. That's fine. Like I mentioned before too, like we're expecting this to come back into deeper portions of this overall structural leg right here. I would say that reasonably until we actually come above all of this liquidity up here or these inducement levels, I don't think there's an actual trade idea that should formulate. Ideally, we want to see a sweep or a flow realign, levels of liquidity to take. This is going to take a while to actually frame up, but if and when it does, we're going to have a huge trade that we could potentially trade into. So just be careful. Don't be trading against what's going on. Just let the higher time frame do its work, and then just focus your attention on other pairs for the time being. So you can see what's happening now on USD CAD. Obviously, as soon as we break above this liquid region, we're starting to get that reaction. We'll see if this breaks down. And if and when it does, we can start trading this down into potentially into here. And then furthermore, taking these trades right here against it to actually hedge the position and possibly trading ourselves all the way down into swing structure lows. So we'll have to, like, I think the ones that I'm going to be most interested in over the course of the next day or two is going to be looking for these potential GJ scales if and when they sort of present themselves as they start to come up and push back down. We're going to get this bullish order flow on the higher time frame, and we'll be able to trade these extremities and likely trade these into some really high RR positions. So yeah, that's basically what I'm looking at. Let's check gold really quick. Yeah, gold is obviously melting off. We're coming after this low. Like it's inevitable. Like we're coming down. We're going to get a reaction as soon as we break through this. Once we break through this, what happens? Well, liquidity now becomes up here. So we can start looking at potential scales on gold like this. But I do think that this low is going to be very weak, given the fact that we haven't broken anything. We haven't really left a whole lot of liquidity behind, other than this intraday stuff in here to be able to scale into larger sell positions. Everybody take some value from this. Drop a 1 if we Gucci and 2 if you have a question. I know I'm just kind of running through these, but not a whole lot to go through right this second. Just that one trade and getting my toes back in the water, to be honest with you, and that feels good to actually execute a position. So yeah. So homework assignment, I'll put it up a little bit later on this afternoon, but if you guys want to go build out and start doing it, it's going to be based around this Euro GPY. sorry, not Euro JPY, GBP JPY setup that I'd taken. It doesn't mean that it's going to hold through this entire fucking trade idea. It just means that entry criteria presented based off of higher time frame narrative, and ultimately all we do is execute based off of trade ideas setting up, and that's the one that set up for me today. Anyways, hopefully you guys took some value. I will I'll leave you guys with this. I will see you guys on Friday for our live trading session. Be mindful that there's news events pretty well all freaking week long. So just you know, if it means sitting on your hands and you find yourself being a little bit too emotional trading through news, it's very simple. Just don't trade the fucking news. Go back, build some case studies, do a little bit of back testing. Most effective way again to back test, at least in my opinion, is build out a bunch of case studies and then go back and back test those case studies. You want to be back testing pieces of price that you know work in your favor so that you can see how they frame up and notice the differences between them and correlate them to your flow charts as well as your checklists and your entire trade plan. Keep things simple, guys. Do not reinvent the wheel. The strategy is already in place. We already know it works. You just need to be able to actually see it through and let these things fall into place. So I hope you guys have a good rest of your day, and I will catch you guys this evening for the daily look ahead and Friday for our live trading session. Have a good one. Peace out, guys.